We want to go to Tel Aviv now. NBC's Keith Miller is standing by at a place that knows, frankly, firsthand what it's like to be a part of those air raid sirens, to carry around gas masks. It's something that the Israeli citizens experienced all too closely in 1991. Keith?
Well, indeed, Chris, when those sirens went off in Kuwait, they were relayed here via Israeli radio and television. I'm sure it had a very quick impact. Bad news travels fast, as they say. It was interesting because almost immediately the traffic in the streets started diminishing and the number of people outdoors decreased as well. I think people remember all too clearly the dangers in 91 and the scuds that were falling here. And the siren, interestingly enough, is almost exactly the same as the siren system here. So I think people had a scare right away. Everybody in this country is carrying a gas mask. Unlike you were mentioning in Kuwait, some people had them, but every person in the country, man, woman, and child, 6 million people, do a gas mask. Today, Chris, against the United States and Britain. Over in Gaza, about 700 school kids gathered to burn American and Israeli flags and show portraits of Saddam and carry Iraqi flags. This is an organized demonstration. Perhaps nobody took credit for organizing it, but probably Hamas or Islamic Jihad, one of the Islamic radical groups, organizing these school children to show their support for Saddam Hussein. We were told also there were some scattered demonstrations in the West Bank, not very big, but nonetheless showing their support for Saddam Hussein. Meanwhile, here, it's interesting, Chris, each passing hour diminishes the possibility of an attack on Israel, a Scud attack. According to the Israeli Defense Ministry here, they were saying perhaps the first 48 hours would be the most crucial, but that as each hour ticked away, the Americans would be able to focus more on western Iraq, perhaps moving special forces through there and diminishing the possibility of a Scud attack from that part of Iraq. Chris?
Yeah, it was pretty dramatic, I think, for most Americans, and I don't know if you have a return there that you can see the video, but we showed the pictures that obviously your crew shot, and these beautiful little kids walking around the streets, I assume, of Tel Aviv, and they have the carriers for gas masks slung over their shoulders, something that even in a post 9/11 world in America, I don't think most of us can even imagine. Will we stop seeing that then, do you think, in Tel Aviv and other cities around there after that 48 hours or so?
I think they won't. I don't think the Israeli government, even though they're the ones who mentioned that the first 48 hours are critical, will actually lift the announcement or say lift the requirement for everybody to carry their gas masks until they're absolutely 100% sure that they won't be needed. And as we all know, just from the first 24 or less hours of this conflict, that a lot of things happen that you're not ready for, that you're not expecting. The war is the unexpected. So I think they'll probably keep the recommendation of keeping your gas mask with you for some time beyond the 48 hour. We have to see what the next stage of this war will be and what kind of impact that has both in Iraq, in Kuwait, and then of course here in Israel.
And Keith, just before I let you go, just remind us, in 91, even though those scuds were lobbed and did hit in some neighborhoods around Tel Aviv, the majority of fatalities weren't actually from people being hit by those missiles. It was from people who had trouble with their gas masks and so on, wasn't it?
Well, it's extraordinary. What you really had is fear here. And fear caused more deaths in Israel in 91 than the Scuds. And I can give you this astonishing statistic, I find it so, that of all 39 attacks, one person in Israel, one person died from a direct hit from a Scud missile. 94 to 98 people died from heart attacks, strokes, suffocation, being stuck inside a sealed room, and perhaps having an indoor barbecue for heat, not realizing the coals are of course causing some decrease in oxygen levels within the rooms. And then unfortunately, tragically, some families not knowing how to work the gas mask and suffocating. So in fact, the Russians, this is a Russian-made weapon, this Scud, and it is basically an urban terrorist weapon. Creates a huge blast, a huge sound, but doesn't cause that much damage. Unfortunately for Israel in 91, most of the fatalities were from other incidences associated with the Scuds. Chris?
Keith Miller in Tel Aviv for us. Those are astonishing statistics. Thanks, Keith. We'll be checking in with you throughout the day. John?